Alright, greetings fellas. Today we're gonna be reviewing the Brexit. I decided to have some thoughts on the Brexit and what are the economic, let's say, hurdles that it has, will have, might have, does it have. I'll try to cover it a bit. We'll not go very much into the numbers, so for now we're gonna be doing something more of a thought overview of what happened so far and why is it being done. So what we have is most of the, let's say, people who are into the remaining are both inside and outside of UK are pushing by all means possible, including through media and swaying public opinions through propaganda. Even the high-level propaganda is an academic propaganda, where people whose research depends on the politicians and on the funds that they receive from the government sways their vote. So we cannot talk about integrity, and we will be committing the fallacies of appeal to authority or appeal to expertise if we listen to them. You have to think for yourself and not listen to somebody who is considered a specialist or an expert. And you have to think twice before you have to confide in such person. Anyhow, we have European Parliament and European Commissions, which are the top executive powers in the European Union. And we have Juncker, President of the European Commission, who appoints people for the positions. And these people are being either accepted by Euro Parliament or not. Normally it happens that they accept without much of the hesitation. So as you see, not much of a resistance if you want to do something, and considering that most of them are of the same kind of people and they know one another and they have good networking relationships among themselves, it's somewhat created an elite segment of the European establishment that is readily available for such positions without much controversy implied if they do something out of the line. You must understand that UK is one of the biggest economies of the European Union. Being not part of the Eurozone is already a good thing for the UK, but quitting EU is very bad for the EU mostly. Well, the politicians in the EU, they claim, oh no, it's actually bad for UK and you will pay for it. And the threats come from the Euro commissioners about the evils of the Brexit and how it is damaging everything. What do they mean by everything? And normally they're very vague on that. But what they are not vague about is the amounts. I mean, they of course are vague about the amounts, but let's think. You have people coming to the microphone and saying, oh, the UK owns us 100 billion, 200 billion, or 60, 40. It seems now it's gone down to 20 billion as latest news go. But the main point is to prevent people from supporting the Brexit, because it will damage European Union and the plans that they have more than it will damage the UK. And they know it, and they're trying to hide it by playing a hard stance on the UK, by being tough guys on negotiations, by pulling away the strings, because as a bloc, it's easier for them now to pull the strings of the negotiations as they want to put into submission the UK citizens, the UK leaders, who sometimes are not actually into the changing of the outcome themselves. They're like, well, this outcome could have been different, but we don't really want to change it. Maybe we can stay in EU as well. But okay, fine, you voted, so we're gonna pretend that we're in for you people, and then we're gonna quit the EU. And it needs people with balls who can negotiate in the European Union, because UK, just like EU, has leverages that helps the negotiation. What is happening is nothing but a tug of war between EU and UK, deciding who will get the most out of this. And what is this money? What is this 20 billion? UK must pay for what? What does it owe to the European Union? Did it do something that it has to pay back? People think that what happens in the country is that UK is producing and living for itself, and then on top of that receives funds from the European Union. It doesn't work that way. UK also contributes a lot to the European Union. Let's not forget that, being one of the biggest economies of the world, not only the European Union. So losing something like that, losing an access to a market like that, and having to establish new tariffs and issues with fees and taxation, monetary interest rate exchanges, which it had as well. But what happens is that it will affect the monetary side of the British to euro pound relation, and this will affect also the exports and imports from within and from the outside, which can benefit one side and make the other lose it. And since EU is very dependent on the funds, on the capabilities of the UK economy as well, they want to have a buffer time, so when they divorce they have some buffer in the amount of cash, which is not only to scare off people but also to have the buffer as something that will help them to not make things look worse within the EU once UK leaves. Because European Union, well, it's only monetary union so far, economic monetary union. It's not fiscal union, which it is very huge problem, but we're not going to go into that now. So what happens is that cash will be needed to keep the inefficient programs that EU runs for a long period of time already. For example, you have the agricultural sector. European agriculturists are the most protected class in the world, which makes them lazy and inefficient, but better that than spilling milk in the middle of Paris, right? But let's see by ourselves what is trade and where the most trade happens. And the most trade of UK is actually United States, Germany, France, Netherlands, Ireland, China, Switzerland, Belgium, Italy, Spain, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Japan. These are our top 15 trading partners from exports. So these are top places to which it exports. Of course, most of them are big economies like Germany and France within Europe. We also have others outside of European Union, outside of Europe itself. If we consider also Switzerland. So we have these countries like United States, you have countries like China, Turkey, Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, or South Korea and Japan. All these countries, they gained over the time, they gained a bigger foothold with the UK as a trading partner. However, the distance also dictates the amount of trade available, because the costs affect, and the cultural proximity can also influence the trading amounts, and not considering also the political landscape. Anyhow, what we have is countries that since 2000, given the time, managed to till 2016 managed to increase their fair share of the trade with the UK, while EU reduced actually its trade. The National Statistics Office of UK says that the trade of exports from UK into the EU has fallen from 54% in 2000 till 43% in 2016. Well, where did it go? Well, mostly it came as more trading with countries outside of the EU. So what happened? This was before the vote. There was no drastic drop after the referendum. The things were falling like this already for a long time. So what happened? Oh, something happened within the EU that prevented people from trading more. Well, one of the things can be explained is the monetary instability inside of the Eurozone and probable increase of uncertain future economic situation of the European Union and its own survivability, actually. And believe me, it's tougher, because if you think that EU will hold, I have to tell you that it will fall. And it will fall pretty, I wouldn't say soon, but it will be rather uncomfortable, and in our lifetimes for sure. And the reasons why I will try to cover in the next episodes, and we will see how it goes from there. So what we have UK having a trade deficit. So what does it mean, trade deficit? It means that UK with the European Union, UK imports more goods from European Union into UK than it exports goods produced in UK into the rest of the European Union. People think, deficit is something negative. People don't understand that UK is just one country, and it's not the same as 26 countries. And of course, there will be more things that UK can bring in from the outside than it can produce and export out. However, it has trade surplus with other countries outside of the EU, including United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Australia, Brazil, United States. Well, why is that? Well, probably is because some of the agreements that they made not even being with these countries in any type of the economic union are quite beneficial for their economy, the UK economy. Well, why is that? Probably they did something else. Probably they're doing some shady business. Well, I have to say that it's all very legal, and it just shows the certain type of inefficiencies that European Union runs, which will be explained, let's say, at a later date. But for now, we'll stick to the numbers. And for that matter, we can look at trade of United Kingdom with the United States. And United States helps UK make 100 billion pounds in 2016 from trade. There was goods sold in the amount of 100 billion pounds, and services, of course, to the US, which is twice as much as exports as it says to any other country. So if you want some real data, you don't watch TV, you go to a national statistics office where they have publicly explain everything, what are the numbers, and where it clearly says what the things are. And then you just have to understand what is going on. Now, another scare figures that they use is decrease in GDP or decrease of the consumption by the UK consumers due to uncertainty. Of course, uncertainty makes people save more money and spend less, but it also has an effect from monetary side. And believe me, a pound is more stable than euro. Probably will stay more stable than euro, but we will see long term at later date what are the differences in the monetary politics that make pound more stable than euro. However, let's go back to the business. What I mean by scaring off is that they use this reduction in GDP. Consumption is reducing. It's very bad for the economy. Well, let's think, what is GDP? Well, gross domestic product can be thought simply as all the monetary supply, so all the currency that is being in circulation, plus the reserves, of course, that is created. So all the pounds in existence times the velocity of money, or velocity of currency, which velocity of currency means 1 pound, how many times it changes hands. And when you multiply one value by another, you have the GDP. Of course, people say, what does it mean? Well, if you have people who save, it means the money that they have don't change hands very often. Therefore, the velocity falls. So the currency supply can be the same, but if money change hands less often, then what we have is a fall in the GDP, which can be bad or it can be good, but it depends on what you do with it, how people are reacting. And what is happening is that euro is scaring people into not spending their money because they don't know what is going to happen, and therefore damaging the UK economy, which will, by their thinking, make UK crawl back to them, because you had Juncker threatening the UK with the terrible consequences of the divorcing from the EU, and how dare they fall out of the line and so on. You bad vassal, the classic story, aristocrats, they love it. They love the power and they hate to lose it. So of course you're gonna have news like telling something like, oh, the economic growth is cooling. Well, what is economic growth? If you have problem with the velocity, or you have currency supply, if you have same currency supply, which doesn't happen, or you have reduced velocity, which depends on the people behavior as well. So how do you know what is happening? Well, it can be temporary, and of course it is temporary. In times of uncertainty, people are not sure about the future, but it's not that it's going to be terrible. This is not the level of the discomfort that might be caused by war, for example. So it's not going to be terribly bad like in 2008. But as soon as divorce happens, the people will just calm down, because they will know what is the plan. And that is the problem for the EU, because they don't want this. This is why they were delaying negotiations, and they still don't want to have an agreement. They first want to have Article 50 and then do an agreement, because then it means that people will still have an uncertainty, because they won't know the plan, and they can pull on the agreement later, saying, oh, you know what, we're not, you pulled Article 50, now we'll take time with the agreement. In the meantime, the UK citizens will get more disgruntled, which will play in hand for the EU, and so it'll be like, if we pull a little bit more, maybe they will beg to come back. And this is a very dirty and ugly trick. You just have to despise the people for pulling such stuff. But when hegemony comes to question, the tricks don't matter to some people, which is quite discerning. Let's think and concentrate on the more important things. And you say, what could be more important than this? Well, you have other politicians interfering into UK opinion by saying, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't vote that, you should prevent it. You have Austrian Prime Minister saying, oh, Brexit should be cancelled. Or you have German minister saying, oh, you know what, another Brexit vote should be cast. Democracy has to be fulfilled. And if you disagree with it because you don't like the outcome, you have the problem and you are not democratic yourself. So you should be questioned. But hey, every time the elections happen, everybody's happy with the results except the opposition. And once referendum happens, everybody's happy with the result except those who weren't happy with the outcome. And what do? Oh, in this case, no. This is not election. This is referendum. So with referendum, we can temper better than if it was for election, because then the referendum legitimacy can be challenged. Because if it's elections and the politicians lied and they won, it's fine. But if it's referendum and politicians lied and they won, oh no, it's not good. We cannot do this. Once you win, you have to accept this, the decision, the solution that came, and they showed the inability to do so because it will hurt them and it will hurt the economy. And it's understandable because they might suffer from the outcomes, as they themselves won't be able to get re-elected in the country, as their country is dependent on trade with UK, for example. So there are many reasons which can be uncovered and which can show what are the underlying conditions under which people regulate themselves about the Brexit referendum and the outcome. What we're going to have is going to have EU will have to have a negotiation agreement as well with UK, and they say they will be tough because, well, if UK is really tough and wants really to quit EU, at least we'll make them pay really hard. We'll make it very beneficial for us and very bad for them. So in some eventuality, they might even return into the EU, crawling to us back on their force because they're weak and inefficient. And it's a very ugly thing to do, but the thing can go both ways, because trade is a very interesting thing, because tariffs, fees, quotas, these things, they go both ways, and they can be used as a shield, as a sword for protection of the economy and therefore political situation of the country, even against something as big as the European Union. You need somebody who understands that to properly negotiate on the behalf of the UK. Whom do we have? I don't know. Theresa May doesn't seem to be that curious about all these possibilities, because she herself was for remaining, but it fell upon her to negotiate on behalf of UK. They decided to quit. So what we have is a person that might not be very suitable for this negotiation stand. We need somebody who is more tough and realizing what are the powers of the UK, and realizing that UK can trade with many countries outside of EU and do it successfully. And the example of US, the example of China, the example of Arab Emirates, Australia and New Zealand, it shows that. They just have to strengthen their bond with other countries, and which they're doing since the referendum started. And they should keep doing this, because it seems so that even without that, the trade already before the referendum for the last 16 years was going down from 54% actually to the 46, 44. So it was a big drop. And this drop is rather significant, and we'll see it at a later date what I mean by that. Now, how do you think this all goes about the trading, about the not trading, but about the agreements, how the EU pushes the UK? The politicians themselves, they don't know much. They somewhat represent, but mostly they're lobbied through the groups, which have a nice, comfy office for themselves in Brussels. And many producers of big companies around Europe, they do exactly that. They just lobby into the oblivion, and they just come over and try to promote the protections for their businesses. So what we have, for example, in the case of industries, let's look at the industries, because if we consider the economy, we can divide it in three sectors, which is the agricultural, the industrial, and the service sector. Now, service and agriculture sector are not as not as stable as industrial. Industrial sector is very important. The economy with a strong industry can survive the worst of the worst, including wars. And the case of Germany showed this. The reason why Germany managed to survive mostly after First World War and managed to recover fast after the Second World War, among other things, was the strong industry. And without strong industry, there will be no strong economy. So if we take an industry as an example, sector industry, and we take as a prime option of one of many that it provides, which is being production of cars, and which is being spoken about a lot in the media, is that cars are a good example of something being produced from the industrial sector. So you have companies like Volkswagen, for example, which was actually, after the scandal in the US, it had to pay a fee of $4 billion to the Department of Justice, as much as I remember, for faking the quality of the emissions. I heard there was something also with testing, animal testing on the emissions. Scandal recently broke as well. I'm not sure about that, but might be interesting to check for those who like such stuff. Anyway, we have these companies that lobbying their interests through the European government, which puts pressure on the negotiations with the UK because they are the primary location. UK has strong pound, which means it's more expensive. So it's more expensive than euro, so it's cheaper for countries within the eurozone to export into UK, and it's more expensive for UK to export into Europe as well, because the currency itself is, let's say, stronger, and I will explain what it means later. But that also explains the reasons why the trade of UK with other countries in the EU is of this relation of having more imports from the EU and less exports into the EU. Now, we have all these companies, and let's take this prime example of the Volkswagen. So many people got fired. The board of directors, they were asked to step down. They weren't fired. They were asked to step down. I think 17 of them. And for that reason, the new people that came over, they said, "Oh, it's time for a change," and they finally do the SUVs. Volkswagen will start producing SUVs for the first time, and it wasn't possible before actually with the old directors, because they were like, "Oh, this is not European. We are not producing the SUVs in Europe. This is not European lifestyle. We are not doing that," and they were not doing that. So now times change, and we'll see more Volkswagen SUVs. But anyhow, so what we have is this type of companies. They putting pressure on the European leaders. I mean, it's not pressure. It's more like friendly conversations about something which can be done towards evil, problematic business making. That will happen because the EU will have negotiating stances that will not help it much against the UK, because if done smartly, UK will be able to have a good position and the economy will recover properly. Of course, turbulence happens in such situations, but these turbulences are not, UK is not going to become another Greece. UK is not going to become another Portugal, Spain. It's not going to fall like this. What will happen is going to have some turmoil, which is temporary and satisfactory to some businesses, actually. So for now, if we recap, let's think of the GDP, which is the velocity of money, which is how often a piece of paper changes hands, times the amount of papers in the economy altogether. And in case of uncertainty, people tend to save up money and spend less, so therefore less consumption. So means the paper changes hands less often. Therefore, when you multiply, the value of the GDP goes down. Therefore, GDP is going down. It's really, really bad. The other thing is the inflation, which is the printing of the currency, printing of the papers. It's the other thing which is more under control in UK than in EU, because UK has control of both monetary and fiscal policies, while European Union has control over the euro, and euro provides only the monetary side, while each country in the EU has the fiscal control. And so far it keeps this union away from being closer to the Soviet Union. But with the new talks on the military, on the United Europe military, then it will become more of the Soviet Union type. But we'll see where it goes. Anyhow, we have the velocity of money, which affects the GDP, but velocity of money is affected by the behavior, because people feel uncertainty, and then their uncertainty makes them save up money, so they don't just spend it. It's not that the economy doesn't have money, just don't spend it. And this being promoted mostly by the scare tactics from the EU side, which wants UK citizens to save up more so that UK economy actually slows down. And this is just that. Once the new agreements came up on, and the people will know what is happening, therefore the certainty is back, and there is no more contact with the political side of the EU, no more influence, the people will continue spending more, so the velocity will increase, and therefore GDP will continue growing. But hey, it's all stress. UK owes EU 60 billion, 50, 70, 100, 200. You have to pay now. And that's the main line, and it's just ridiculous, and it just it's just that background noise that distracts and makes people fear because they don't know what's there in the dark. And once somebody comes to tell you what's in the dark, you're not that afraid. But anyhow, we have the companies that lobby you because their trade is dependent with the UK. The UK has to concentrate more on having trade agreements outside of the EU. It might as well be harder, but over time it will be beneficial. And of course, it has to have a person that will be able, or people, a group of people that are be able to negotiate on the behalf of the UK, knowingly what are the greatest tools that UK has, which will help them to negotiate with the EU and do that. That's more or less the whole situation of the Brexit. There is no terrible stuff, but let's think about those who say we have to remain, because they don't know anything better. They just, for them, they got used to that. They're conservative in this sense, we might say, but not in the slightest. This was all interesting and fun, and I hope you liked it. Be sure to give me feedback so that I know what I might include, what I forgot, if I messed up somewhere, because sometimes I mess up somewhere. It happens, and it has to be fixed. But anyhow, I think I covered properly my thoughts on the Brexit and why you shouldn't worry, and when people generally shouldn't worry, and why is it being done. Maybe I'll do some more later on, but for now, this is gonna be it. And have fun. Watch out for that velocity. Cheers. Oh yes, almost forgot. I'll be covering some more on the instability of the Eurozone and of the European Union itself, and that is one of the also reasons why they're fighting so harsh to keep UK inside of the EU. But in next episodes, probably the next one, we'll see. This will be so much fun.